You are listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
The Archaeology Podcast Network is sponsored by Codify, a California benefit corporation. Visit Codify at www.codifi.com. Hey everyone, and welcome to a special episode of the CRM Archaeology Podcast. This isn't actually a CRM Archaeology Podcast episode. This is the audio from the recorded webinar that we had with the Center for Digital Archaeology in conjunction with Codify, PCS, and the APN. We recorded this on December 1st at 11 a.m. Pacific time, and it was a follow-up response to the ACRA webinar or video that they posted earlier this week regarding life in archaeology in a Trump administration. So this is the audio. It's only been slightly cut for spaces and things like that, but aside from that, it's right there and ready for you to go. There will be some links in the show notes for this that you can go and find some more information about this. So enjoy the episode, and thanks for listening.
The purpose of this particular meeting here is just to get us together and have an opportunity to talk about stuff. There are groups in Facebook. Not everyone's on Facebook, but as you probably know, many of you do know, there is the Archaeologists Against Trump group, which is now a closed group, but you can still come in and participate in that. But we're a little bit more old school and thought that having conversations that could lead to actually formative actions that may not necessarily be political, but it could also be like, how do I train? How do I work? What does archaeology in the 2017 look like? And also responding kind of more specifically to the predictions and actions, and as I said, beyond advocacy, things that go kind of beyond the specific things that ACRA will do, because there are many of us on this call who may not necessarily be CRM only centric, but are just passionate and care about archaeology. Chris, have anything to add before I turn off our webcams and kind of open it up?
No, not really too much. Just I second everything that Michael said, and I'm involved in a couple of other groups that do a little bit of activism and things like that on various fronts, and I'm always more for conversation that leads to doing rather than just conversation for conversation's sake. I think that's kind of what got us into this mess as Democrats and liberals personally. But that being said, I'd love for something to come out of this, even if it's, a follow-on discussion in a month or something like that to continue it. Even that would be, enough to come out of this. But anything that we can do to make some progress forward and start looking at those midterm elections would be great. That's it.
Okay, and then just to point out again, there are things we do in life, for because we're part of different organizations and agencies, and I personally am just saying I'm just here as a person today, but we are really also trying, as you've seen, probably a huge formation of information flooding all of the social. For these four organizations that we have, that we're all working as part of Center for Digital Archaeology, the APN, which just went over how many, Chris, again, listeners?
38,000 monthly subscribers as of the end of November. 38,000
subscribers, which is amazing. Codify is a B corporation, a benefit corporation, has a social justice mission as part of why we're doing this stuff, to kind of paperless, 21st century, all that. PCS around training, ACRA does training, SAA. So I think for sure training is something that is key in our minds, and not necessarily in this huge, massive, huge kind of thinking, but also little tiny things like this, little moments that may be a bit more episodic, but also we hope formative and useful. Okay, so with that, I am going to turn off my webcam, still here, and I'm going to open up the audio floor and just kind of kick this off, but I'm hoping that all of you will just take this as the opportunity to chat. As you see from the agenda, we're kind of now in kind of a review of the predictions would be really great, and any kind of words or thoughts you have there. If it gets really silent, then we will just regenerate all the coffee and keep things flowing. So with that, I am going to turn on all of your mics. See how that goes so far.
Nice.
So good.
Yeah, if anybody is in a challenging, noisy situation, feel free to mute your mic when you're not talking.
Right. With that, basically, I'm suggesting that you have full control of your own microphones at this point. Okay. So as I mentioned, that the transcript is here. How many of you, show of hands and or just add in verbally, did everyone get a chance to watch the video?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a little skimming of it. Anything Trump gets me a little depressed. Sorry, just gonna put that out there.
You know, I can kick off the discussion a little bit because I was looking forward to the ACRA webinar. I was looking forward to hearing what their thoughts were, and I just wanted to address. You know, there were a lot of comments, especially on Facebook, about ACRA not having a strong enough response. But I do appreciate that they had a quick response. And you know, they're a big organization. I'm kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt on the strength of their response. They're only capable of doing so much early on, but the fact that they made an attempt to make a statement and sort of rally the troops and have kind of a call to action, I do appreciate that. And I think like most things in this world, we can't rely on any one organization and or person to do all the things that we want to do. We have to, if we want to do anything as an industry, as a group, then we have to band together and do it together. And you know, of course, find some leadership to maybe get things going and kick it off. And maybe that can be ACRA, maybe that's another group, I don't know. But to, you know, get everybody on the same page and then working together to achieve, you know, a common goal. That's my thoughts on that. You know, whether or not it was effective or not, I don't know, but I'm glad they had a response regardless.
Yeah, I fully agree. I gotta say that, you know, clearly on Wednesday, that particular Wednesday, all the OMGs happened, and then, you know, a rallying call emotionally in the afternoon to say we just wait a minute, you know. I just have the about the CRM industry part here. We're small, but we're tight, but we're not small if we also just extend just a little bit beyond just archaeology to environmental consulting. Then you're looking at a $50 billion a year industry. And that's definitely part of this. A lot of the things that came up in the ACRA chat, things that come up every single day. Great, I see that, Philip. In just a second, I see you know, a huge amount of commonality and need. And if we just stretch a little bit further than just a little, you know, us as, you know, to the 10,000 people that are that are professionals in archaeology, we can do a lot. So Philip, did you want to say something, jump in, something?
PT.
Give me just a second. Yeah, sorry, I'm kind of noisy, guys. I'm traveling in a noisy diesel vehicle right now. Anyway, to be brief, I did see, sorry, on the road here. So, ladies and gentlemen, I did see with that, it was good that they did have a quick response, but I do say that, that it was kind of a weak response in some ways. Our industry does need to be able to handle a large webinar with a large amount of people. I think a little bit of planning on our end on that could have been better, but I'm glad that they were involved. I do think as a whole, as our industry, we have to get involved on a local level. We have to be involved in legislation. We have to not let the momentum stop. And I also think that we need to make sure that this is a positive move forward, not just a discussion session, not specifically this, but just anything within our industry. Not just a discussion session, but actually doing, like you're saying. So moving the ball forward down the field. Sorry to use the cliched terminology there, but yes, that's my quick and dirty from the road here. Mike, back off here.
I wanted to add something. I unmuted myself. You know, the truth is that in this moment it's very hard to say, to imagine what the impact on the industry will be, what will be the measures, etc. But it is true that we can prepare for whatever will come in a way that can make archaeology and the CRM industry not only more relevant, but also less, in a way, you know, less disruptive on the development of the country, or for what people like Trump, or not only like Trump, is like the administration, the firms that need to move ahead with urbanization efforts and whatnot, how much we can do to ameliorate, to improve our systems, our tools, our processes. I mean, we do know that our industry is very slow. We do know that in order to get in, to turn in a report, to conduct a survey, to do our job, sometimes we take too long. We take much longer than we could, than we should possibly. This is not, it's just a self, if you want, is a self-reflection, you know. Is there anything that we can do? Sure, we need to be part of the policy making discourse, the conversation, but is there anything that we can do on our part to improve our processes, to make it, our processes, to make our work more a little faster, more efficient, so that it will not be you know, seen as, oh geez, yeah, now we have to do the archaeological assessment, but more part of a collaborative effort. This can be done in an efficient way, in reasonable timing, and everybody will benefit from it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Kurt, did you want to jump in? We're just going to collect thoughts right now.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, great. Perfect.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I like what was just said about how we move forward, because I think we can pick apart this video all day long. I think it was an excellent primer. I talked to a lot of people who really weren't aware of what was going on with this change in leadership. And I think that's a great place for people to start. But I think now we need to leave the video behind us. And I think we really need to start taking steps to move forward. One of the things I wanted to bring up, and I don't know if now is a good time, but I may not be able to be here for the whole webinar, is focusing on having one rallying point. I mean, even looking at the screen now, I see 4 different logos, and I just want to start to come up with a place where we can all go to discuss how to move forward collectively, and then disseminate that information in all of our different channels. So if we could start to come up with a place where we could, whether it's on social media or whether we're having meetings once a month, I'd really like to start to hash out where our rallying point will be. And that's all I'm going to say for right now. I'll let you guys, I'll take my question off here.
Michael, what do you think? Do you think I should take some quote-unquote meeting notes of all these great ideas so we can have them as a collective to refer to?
Yeah, I would just do it right in the Google Doc at the bottom. Would be great. To that. So a quick response to that. Absolutely. Again, you know, the challenge about these all things. I mean, again, ACRA, you know, got 3,000 videos, but views of the video. The question is, how do we go about that? Social media is a way to do it, but it's not the only way. We're seeing a huge amount of response in the AAT. But a focused place, the source of response. All right, great. We have our first action. How freaking awesome is that? How are we going to do it? I think we can just kind of organically kind of figure that out. We all have different levels of infrastructure and little things we can do, but I love the idea of figuring out a way to make that a common and specific kind of locality and focus for the group. That's not branded. It's not about. This is not about branding. This is about doing, but we are going to be doing. I see a fantastic response from Sarah. Sarah, did you want to? Thank you for putting that in writing. Do you want to actually say anything also?
She said that she doesn't have the audio. I think,
okay.
Earlier in the chat, if I'm not wrong.
That was Adrian. She doesn't have audio. I don't know if Sarah doesn't.
Oh.
Yeah, I do have audio.
Great.
But,
Awesome. Fantastic.
Sorry.
I wasn't quite sure how to jump on in, but yeah, I mean, I guess you just see my comments that I mean, I guess Marion's comments about pushing the federal responsibilities onto the states was something I hadn't really paid a lot of attention to in the election, so that was definitely an oh crap moment, and you know, makes me want to look at where our local advocacy and our state advocacy can be, but also what our state permit systems are and local permits and other ways to kind of reinforce those. And it seems like, and then also to look for places where we can talk to industries about voluntary compliance. Like we see with the Dakota pipeline, when you screw up, you get really bad press really fast. And so maybe even if regulations change, are there ways we can kind of make it like a social good to not screw up, even if the federal laws weaken? I guess with some of my questions and responses. I think the SAA was hoping to put on a continuing education program about how to do local advocacy, but they're looking for people to lead that, and they don't have anybody identified in particular. So if there's names I think they're really interested in doing one of those. So that's the end of my comments, rambling as they are.
No, that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, one of the things that one of the challenges we all have with local advocacy is absolutely will be huge. The thing with the SAA and all the groups and why there's a slowness to response, which is always frustrating for everyone, is it's the most political juggernaut we have. So I totally get it, and I've had opportunities to participate in various levels with the SAA. So the question again, we're going to have to find, I think, I'm hoping Ellen will jump in here too, but we're going to have to figure out a place that is almost, I want to say apolitical, but is conceptually available for us to radically and honestly be able to affect change and impact on local levels, and not just political levels as well, but also like how are we going to make I basically am asking this: how do we make archaeology even more relevant in the face of this? Thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in now. This is Ellen. I hope that my connection and outdoor location aren't too loud. First of all, thank you for putting this on. I think these kind of conversations between a variety of different people need to be what happens, just between different groups, regardless. And I think a lot of people need to be having those conversations. In terms of the webinar, the way things ended up on Monday, we weren't anticipating 3,000 people or 2,000 people who were registered, and we went to go to webinar, and they said that they had a format that would work for it, and then said it was a beta version. There was a lot of false advertising going on their site. So given the fact that we knew we had 1,200 or 1,500 people showing up and we couldn't do that many individual questions anyway, we wanted to kind of create something stable that would give folks who were just coming into this kind of for the first time a sense of what they could do or what the landscape was. But it's definitely just it's a preliminary step. It's kind of a baseline. And I think that a lot of different groups are needed to jump in because, we know this isn't just about the CRM industry. We know it's an existential crisis for archaeology and historic architecture, and it's also a moral issue for a lot of us, particularly those of us who come at things from an anthropological point of view. But what ACRA is a trade association for CRM companies, and a lot of companies and industries stay out of political issues specifically because then when the wind changes and the administration changes, you've put all of your eggs in one basket and you sort of alienated your industry. So I would say that I like the idea of one banner and one rallying cry, and I know something that Archaeologists Against Trump Facebook page is struggling with is that you don't really want to be an against one dude kind of an organization. You want to be a pro some positive action type organization, and I think they're going to be working on that in the near and long term. But I think that in general we need to be developing a preservation coalition, and maybe that's one blanket organization, or maybe that's overlapping sets of organizations who can do things differently politically depending on what's required in a given situation. There are certain types of actions or activism that maybe aren't right for ACRA and better for SAA, and that's why it's great that we have both. So that's pretty much all I have to say. I'm going to mute myself again. Thank you.
That's great. Yeah, P2, exactly. I think that the concept of coalition, this is a word that's come up that seems to keep everybody kind of zen and chill, as opposed to we're going to do the thing with all the stuff and then get all the eggs thrown at us, or lose our jobs and all the other things that are of grave concern. I really like the statement about kind of the clarity and understanding of what CRM is. not just for us, but for public and public advocacy. This is something that's been coming up, that came up well before the election, and seems to be a rallying cry. We were at the Southeast Archaeology Conference, for example, and there's just a lot of need around that. Other thoughts, people? Anyone?
I'd like to agree with Adrian and then what Sarah is saying here too about the need for education. I mean, that's the primary reason why I started the Archaeology Podcast Network, and the CRM Archaeology Podcast before that was to start sort of demystifying our field. That's exactly what we do at the CRM Archaeology Podcast. We try to talk about things that demystify the behind the scenes stuff that goes on. And so field technicians and every other position, they can say, oh, you know, we got screwed on this because these guys are just trying to do this, but it's really about having a bigger picture. And I think that's one thing that you guys are talking about, that we need that. We need that kind of education. We don't need just education that says, here's how you dig a shovel test pit, here's how you identify a bottle. We need education that shows us, that teaches us how to be better advocates for our field. I think, you know, teaches us about the laws and stuff that help us keep going. You know, like somebody said on here, I think Sarah, how to talk to your representatives, and things like that, because that's you know, our field, whether we like it or not, is very political, and it's very politically driven, and having a way to understand how to interact with all that, and then having a voice, having an organization like ACRA that lobbies on our behalf to do those sort of things is extremely valuable. But it'd be better if we all understood it, because I know I talked about ACRA to somebody not too long ago, a field tech, and they had never even heard of ACRA. You know, people that are in the higher, I think, graduate level positions, you know, they tend to know about ACRA because that's kind of who ACRA advertises to, but other people don't even know ACRA exists, people just coming to the field and things like that. So I think getting that out would help as well.
Yeah, excellent. I threw a question out here, just looking at the time, looking at the agenda. Right. And to Adrian's point, I'd say all of us, is like, well, there's the humans. There's 10,000 alleged archaeologists. I always think there's got to be more than that, right? So if you did the survey, which I absolutely encourage you to do, you know, as Marion said, if you're not at the table, then you're food. I think that's what she said. But basically, do the survey. But one of the things that came up in that is, what are the core actions, the things that ACRA can do are limited but focused, and where ways we can help. But the question beyond that is, what else do we do, and what else do you need in order to succeed? Not just in the quote response to the fact that we have a new administration, but just generally speaking. I mean, again, before the election, we were archaeologists and others and advocates, and after that, we still are. The question we're having to keep this positive focus forward is, what do we need to succeed? So that's what I'd love to hear some thoughts on that, so that we can, you know, kind of help get it going. Anyone? All right, so we're going to start a new podcast. That's great. Others?
So this is Ellen again.
Awesome.
I completely agree that the CRM/academia divide is aggravating, and it's infuriated me since I was an undergrad, when I was trying to do both. I think there's a certain amount to which any type of interacting between organizations takes a huge amount of unrewarded labor on the part of people who serve on committees like this. It's a lot of energy to stay out of silos and to communicate between silos. And so I think that's something that we come up against in ACRA here. ACRA is reaching out to more member firms, but one, I would say, limiting factor of ACRA is that it has approximately 130 firm members, of which maybe between 1 and 8 individuals are involved with ACRA. So it's really, when ACRA does things, it's on the backs of a few people who are putting in massive amounts of time and energy on those committees to make things happen. So I'm not saying that everyone should, you know, go out and get an ACRA membership, although we'd love it if you could. But I think serving on committees like that, on SAA, on SHA, you know, committing to government relations organizations, which, you know, they both have, and so do regional organizations. Like, I'm a member of COVA, the Council of Virginia Archaeologists, and they have a governmental affairs division. But I think one thing that we can all do in our own wheelhouses is join and support those types of organizational structures, which do feel a little bit like something extra on everybody's plate. But most organizations are working because 5% of people are putting in less work. And when we're in a situation where we need to respond quickly to things, and we need to put things on and then realize that there's a tremendous amount that's going into that. The stuff that works at ACRA works in substantial part because Marion and about 5 other people, work 80 hours a week. And so I think we can all find places in our own areas to dig in the shovel and get a little bit occupied. But it is, I think, a particular challenge in CRM because everybody who's working in the field, gets whiplash. They go out for months at a time. They really want to do their laundry and not be outside in the weekend. And, so I think there's an aspect to which field techs and crew chiefs and folks who are not the office management, they struggle sometimes to put in that energy because of the life that the industry has them leading. So that would be my sort of my initial response to what we can do. And we're definitely, I think we've got like 350 responses to that survey, and we're going to be distilling that in a few days. And one clear indication that we have is people want more events. They want more activities like this. And the National Trust also has a monthly webinar conversation presentation to keep people apprised of governmental affairs, which I would recommend archaeologists getting involved and participating in. But I think it's, we all probably know committees and organizations at our university, at our regional anthropological organizations, at our national organizations that just don't have the manpower they need. And I think that we're going to need to commit to those institutions for the next several years to really see good change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, having gone through and even taught classes on things like, the 99%, the Green Revolution, the Twitter, all the goodness, things die really fast. We have the numbstruck, then millions of people will join all the groups and do all the things, and then life happens, and then the holidays happen, and then we all can't do it. But this is different. We have to figure out a way to do it. We're doing this today because, just like you said, we want to get a conversation going, and a couple of seconds of writing in Facebook isn't going to do it all at all. I was amazed. I was blown away in a really negative way by how little energy happened, at least in the socials around the ACRA video webinar this Monday. We got to figure out a way to get off our things. We got to figure out a way to make our time useful, and that's going to be the major challenge. Is how to let's face it. Like if I'm going to spend 5 hours in a month participating in different types of advocacy groups, and no action comes from those things, I'm out. I think I speak probably for most of the people on this call, but I'd love to hear from other people. So by all means. How do we keep this going? I got Kurt on the local, which is fantastic. Yeah, because we do want it tomorrow. I want a later afternoon. And then how are we going to keep rolling this forward? I think we really can fight inertia, or actually build our own by basically being positive and doing things. So thoughts?
I agree. That's my thought, because and I think the first step starts with, like we've already mentioned before, starts with educating ourselves before we can start educating other people. So I think that's whatever we can do to get that going, just more information and more information. For instance, people tend to discount social media sometimes, especially Facebook these days, because of all the fake news and things like that. But just some numbers for you. The Archaeologists Against Trump group, which is poorly named at this point, it needs to be more of an activism group at this point and not so starting off negatively, but that's another conversation. They started a few weeks before the election actually happened, and they've currently got 3,651 members. So, I mean, that's huge. The Archeo Field Text group on Facebook, which is pretty active in discussions and you know, people come in there for help, they come in there for questions, and people answer them. That's got 1,963 people. And then another field tech group, the North American Archaeological Tech Forum, has 627 members. Together, that's 6,441. Now, if you use Facebook's algorithms and you post within one of those groups, not everybody is going to see that unless they go to the group. They're not going to see it in their news feed. If you go to the group, you see everything linearly. If you don't, it's going to pepper things into your news feed. However, if somebody belongs to all those, which like I do, and I like a lot of people do, and you post in all three of those, like I know a number of us do, then there's a better chance of getting that information out. So that's one way to start filling up people's news feeds. I don't think we should call it news feeds anymore, by the way. It's really rarely actual news on Facebook. But anyway, you fill up their feeds with really good information, and then they start sharing that, and it's good stuff. It's one way to keep the conversation going. I think Facebook still has a pretty big role to play in that, because I think I heard a statistic the other day that said something like a really high percentage of people get their primary news source is their Facebook newsfeed, which is shocking, but we should exploit it because it's true.
Definitely. I also just thought of another action item that people who are going to SHA can take, which is that Eden Burgess, who's the Government Affairs Counsel for SHA, and she works at the law firm with Marion, and she works on ACRA, government relations with Marion as well, is going to be giving a roundtable luncheon on how to perform political advocacy. That's on Thursday, like the rest of the luncheons are. And additional to that, one of the things that that SHA and ACRA do for their members within their government affairs work is that they will encourage their members when they're in DC to do Hill visits, and they will train them in how to do that for people for whom that's kind of nerve-wracking. When ACRA member firms from various places come to DC, Marion will review the talking points, whatever issue that it is that they want to discuss. They will take them to their own representatives, and having small business owner representatives or academic representatives or nonprofits, whoever it is from their district, when you've got archaeological sites that are locally relevant or historic buildings that are historically relevant, there's really no replacement for an informed and motivated constituent. And so that's one area where I feel like archaeologists and anthropologists generally maybe don't do that a whole lot currently, but it's a type of training that's available through ACRA and through SHA, and it's something that we really want people to become more comfortable with, because I think developing and maintaining those kind of political relationships after those visits and making those kinds of visits regularly, they really have a huge impact. So that's just that advocacy luncheon, if people are going to SHA, is just one way that people can tick a box if they're going to be there already and get some kind of exposure to something that maybe they're a bit new to.
Great. Well, as I mentioned, both Chris and I will be there. We'll be participating in the tech room and just kind of generally being there. We'll reach out to ACRA and others through the groups and also see who else is going to be there. But basically, one of the things I think that we can do, an easy thing for all of us to do, and we'll volunteer to get that Google Doc going. So it was a great idea, Adrian, I think is a doc where basically we said, okay, that's great, PTL will be a lot of fun, is to just list all the events that are coming up, local, et cetera, et cetera. We can start it somewhere. We can figure out ways of putting it into a singular location in the Facebooks as well, and then provide the materials and make the materials beautiful and effective and impactful. I love the notion of learning how to do a hill visit and how to talk to your local your council members and your senators and congress people and all those things. That's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you, everyone, for your ideas and your thoughts and your resources. I'm marking it all down in the Google Doc that we will be sending to you at the end of all this. So keep them coming.
Yeah, we're no worries, and I'm holding the silences in here just to give people another opportunity, but we're looking, the chat is fantastic. As I mentioned, we've learned how in GoToTraining how to save the chat and when to do that, like before you close a call, because it goes away. And the recording as well. Watching the time, just a couple more minutes here. We're going to really hold these office hours to time. So that's fantastic. So by all means, also in these kind of forums, they can be a little bit nerve-wracking, especially for the more introverted folks. We get that. So we'll figure out other ways. Once again, just as we began the call, I want to say at the end, we're trying a bunch of different stuff, okay, as in individuals and groups and organizations and coalitions to level up archaeology. This is, again, started well before the election. And our objective is just to keep trying all the things and figure out what is working, what isn't. Now, we can talk in very amorphous terms about this and keep doing that, but there are some things we know we need to do in ways that we absolutely can improve things. And again, training for unemployed and underemployed CRM people who actually want to be professional archaeologists, but either can't get a job right now or are looking or want to have their skills leveled up, is something we're going to be working on as a core mission, okay? Not even going to name a group. That's just a thing we want to have happen. So that's one thing I'll just throw out there for you all. And let's looking at these things. Right, and again, this is an issue. So various groups, like in order to be an RPA, you have to have all the merit badges and different diplomas. To be an ACRA, you have to be, there are various ways. So we got to figure out a way to find, I love this notion of the coalition, a place where anyone can participate so long as they want to get some stuff done. Okay, that's pretty much all I have. Any other lasting thoughts from anyone? Are we all just too depressed? Are we motivated, excited? Are we freaking out?
I don't mind jumping back in real quick. Oh, sorry.
Go.
No problem.
Okay, I'm
Go
back
ahead.
I'm in a better area where I don't have as much noise. Gotta love archaeology from the field. Anyway, I think this has been very productive, but I think that keeping the momentum moving forward on the advocacy that I've been working on my specific project locally, I will make sure that Sarah Gale and some others in Georgia, we've been working together to actually move this information forward up the legislative chain with some things that have happened. House Bill 346 in Georgia. We're going to be having some information come through in a session at SAA, which Elizabeth Reitz from Iowa has put together on advocacy. So definitely try to join in for that. Some of us are discussing some of that. But I will try to work personally to try to help with that process in letting people understand how that process works to get to your state representative, your local representative, because we've actually had some experience in that. So that's all I got to say quickly, and I want to do anything I can to help move this process forward. And it was great to hear from everybody. I'm glad we're having this conversation.
Lindsay, did you have
I mean, I do have questions. I kind of came to see if I could listen and kind of what I could learn from all of you. But being that we're coming to the end,
we got time.
Maybe should wait.
No waiting. There's no waiting. There's a tomorrow apparently.
Fair enough. The one question I do have personally, firstly, coming from a standpoint that is somewhat like what Ellen had described, being I'm not in the field, but I'm a working single mom, and time is hard to come by. And the other thing I'm feeling limited by, and I'm not sure exactly how much, is the fact that I'm a government employee, and we are strictly held to the Hatch Act in my office. So I know I was told before I started working, if you want to make donations to any of the candidates in the presidential race, you want to do it before you start this job. And I don't know. I guess I probably should be doing research about that here where I work, but kind of have mostly questions right now about how people in my position can be involved, because I would like to be as much as possible. but I'm my understanding right now of I guess how we can get involved in ways that maybe doesn't involve as much of the advocacy, because I think that's what I can't do a lot of. Okay, sorry, this is I'm kind of
Well,
trailing
no,
off.
you're doing great. And so it looks like Sarah might have a couple of thoughts.
Yeah, Lindsay. So just a little perspective from Georgia. We just got done last spring working to modify and fight against a Senate bill that tried to exempt all transportation projects from following our state environmental policy. And the biggest helps to us were actually those insiders who worked in the government who couldn't do their own advocacy, but who were, we all know each other in our networks, right? We're all, maybe we don't talk as much as we should, which was a lesson that we learned in Georgia. But, reaching out to those contacts you have who are not in government, and just keeping them aware of kind of what's going on and what your opinions are and how you see things progressing in your own agency. Because we can be, those of us in private industry, depending on where we work, we can be more of an advocate and we can be a voice for you. And that's, at least in Georgia, that's what we found. A lot of our people who did kind of have their hands tied and their voices tied a little bit.
Really couldn't go show their face at, say,
they couldn't, or they shouldn't
the state
put
building
it on their Facebook.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
That's where we started. Something we weren't doing before the Senate bill is now we do a monthly archaeology happy hour that we're turning into kind of a legislative update session. So in Georgia, we started a public policy committee following this. We're tracking the legislature. We do updates on sometimes a weekly or a monthly basis to our professional organization, kind of letting them know where we're at and what we're tracking. But the real goal is to connect the people, our government archaeologists, the people who are working in the state, with those of us who can be advocates, and build that local network. Because as many people have already said, one of the big concerns is we're going to see things happening on a local level because they're going to be delegated from a federal one, and we need those insights from you and from others. It goes as I think Adrian said, it doesn't always come down to a happy hour. Yeah, no. That's just kind of building that network was something we realized we needed to do, and I think this is another time where we need to keep expanding and expanding and expanding that network. Okay. Yeah, I mean those are my 2 cents. That's what we found is starting to work for us in Georgia. Yeah, and I wanted to bring up another point. I was just for the group. I was at a Georgia Transportation Summit yesterday, where they bring together the state DOT and airports and all of our transportation officials for kind of a yearly State of the State address. And we had a panel discussion on post-election, a post-election update, similar to the ACRA webinar, but it was given by a member of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and a couple of national transportation research groups, and they specifically alluded to the ACRA webinar. They're aware and they are watching, and it's so it's definitely a time, I think, for people in government to be aware of what they're sharing and be cognizant of that, but yet also for those of us who have the ability to be proactive. I mean, it was definitely just another one of those wake-up calls for me. People are watching, and we need to be paying attention. It's definitely going to come down, I think, to states and state laws and trying to protect those first.
Thank you so much, ladies. I think we're going to start wrapping it up. Chris and Michael, if you want to do any last-minute words or things, I have everyone's comments and suggestions and questions posted on the Google Doc that will be sent to you, everyone, at the bottom. So you have it documented there as well. If you want to copy the chat itself, you may do that. Michael, Chris, last-minute words?
This is Chris. I can make a quick comment on people's concerns about speaking out about things, just as a general warning too. Like I said, the Archaeologists Against Trump group has 3,650 members, but as of right now, the way they set up the group, even though it's closed, anyone can add a member to the group. They just have to be physically approved by another member in the group. The fact that the Archeo Field Techs group has less than 2,000 people in it, it's because myself and the other organizer vet every single profile that comes across that membership. So I go in there. If they don't have anything archaeological in their profile, then I reject them, or I ask them, hey, are you actually an archaeologist? So keeping that in mind, there's a lot of people in the Archaeologists Against Trump group that probably are not to be fear mongering, that probably aren't on everybody else's side. They're just in there to monitor the situation. So, keep that in mind when you're in any of these big Facebook groups that have thousands of members, because the whole Kevin Bacon, you know what I'm talking
Degrees
about.
of separation, right?
Yes,
right.
the degrees of separation. Not too big in archaeology, and we all know that.
Yeah, that's true.
My follow-up to that would be we should be doing the same thing. We should be looking out for those groups that are on the other side. And there's a deplorables Facebook group right now that is like the opposite of Archaeologists Against Trump. It's a hard thing to go in and want to like that from your personal Facebook page, but you should be aware of the conversations that are happening there as well.
Exactly.
That's true.
That is an incredibly important point. Sorry, go ahead, someone.
Oh, sorry, this is Ellen. Just following up about different groups and people in Archaeologists Against Trump not being on the same side as other folks. The other thing that we want to make sure that we're doing, whatever we're doing, is even though there aren't a whole lot of interacting and having good communication with those who are. One of the things that we're looking into is, well, who might have been more on the, Republican side of things, who might have donated money to Republican interests or have communicated with their Republican congressmen, because we need allies on multiple sides.
Jumping in with an editing note here, Ellen was in a wind challenge situation for a little while, so we cut the audio and then brought her back. But then Michael had all the mics muted, so we fixed it though.
Sorry, hang on. Ellen, I cut you off by accident, and I'm trying to get it back. Here we go.
Okay, I
Okay,
think I'm back now.
Yeah, sorry.
Hopefully. So just to not go off on a tangent, but I think we need to be really try hard to work for what's best for the industry and archaeology in general, and an anthropologically minded nation, and we need to not dismiss other viewpoints, and we need to increase, not decrease, the lines of communication with people who might have different political senses than us, particularly if they're within our industry and they can speak to industry issues. I think trying to reach out rather than withdraw is really important right now, and we really need archaeologists and magistrates and red districts to be having conversations with Republicans in the legislature more than ever. That's pretty much it.
All right. Well, this is a really great point and an action item to move forward on. I have a very strong very strong opinions about the concept of having, quote, secret groups in social networks as kind of being the ultimate irony that probably isn't true. But that said, the notion of figuring out ways, we've heard some fantastic ideas of, if you're, by the way, and this has brought some points up, so we will be doing some additional editing. Let me wind this all the way back, because we're just at the edge of the end of time here. So what we're going to do is we are going to, in fact, go through the recording, and I am going to do some stuff to make sure that we have the chat, but without necessarily the names, because of all the things you just said. And then so that we have the chat content, but we don't have necessarily the identification for now. I think that that's probably a good move. And then generally speaking, one of the action items that I'm hearing is, how can we create a coalition concept where people can participate while protecting their own jobs, while being able to participate, while being able to hand this off, kind of secret railroad style thing. All of these things are absolutely achievable. All we got to do is ask someone who's perhaps a bit younger, who's doing all the really cool social goodness stuff, and a bit on the other Gandalf the Grey level to figure out how to kind of do this stuff a little bit more zen and sane. Okay. Some other things that came up at the very end. I'll give a second shout out to Kelly. We didn't even cover or talk about, given who came on the call today, self-volunteer to be part of this call. Obviously, there is all of our Indigenous Native American friends, colleagues, and advocates in there. concepts that we need to, people that we really need to be reaching out to, but also tools that are out there that actually can participate. They can make this possible. Of course, we built one with Muka Do CMS, but that's not really the right venue for doing a kind of a social network type of thing. But there are ways we can do this. So now we have kind of reached the end, but this was really fantastic. We had 14 people. We had lots of interest on Facebook. Any last thoughts for what we want to do going forward other than keep going forward? Excellent. Then I thank you for your time. This was really amazing. We're going to be asking your permission to form this into something. I feel like the audio was excellent, except for that last bit with Ellen catching a train or whatever she's doing. So see if we could actually just post this out as kind of an audio podcast as well. I want to thank you all for this. Again, we just got it kicked off. It is the wind. The wind is blowing. Change is here. Thank you. This is amazing. I feel a lot better. I hope you all do too. And welcome to December.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Chris, for all of this, and thank you, everyone, for your input. Please check out any upcoming trainings that we have on our website at centerfordigitalarchaeology.org. And please get excited. Next week, we have a webinar about drones, usage in the field. So go ahead, sign up, and let's learn some more cool stuff and talk about some more cool stuff. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
One more editing note, the drones webinar is actually on the following week. Next week on Monday, we have on December 5th a webinar on podcasting for archaeology. So check that out.
Thanks, and the call will be continuing. Feel free to drop off for the next couple of minutes as we tidy up all the housekeeping. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again.
Thanks for listening to this special presentation. I'm not going to play the normal CRM ARC podcast outro just to let you guys get on with your days because this was an unplanned episode, but please be sure to share this episode wherever you saw it. Comment on Facebook, on Twitter, and wherever you happen to see the episode, and we appreciate your support. If you're interested in the webinar on podcasting for archaeology on Monday, I'm going to show you all the things you need to do to start your own podcast about your project, your site, your research, whatever you want to do. The APN can help you with all that, and I'm going to walk you right through it. Use the discount code ARCHCAST75450, that's ARCHCAST75FOR50, to get $25 off of the registration fee when you sign up on the page. So do that, and we'll see you on Monday. Thanks a lot.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archaeologypodcastnetwork.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.
Thanks again for listening to this episode and for supporting the Archaeology Podcast Network. If you want these shows to keep going, consider becoming a member for just $7.99 US a month. That's cheaper than a venti quad eggnog latte. Go to arcpodnet.com/members for more info.